So I am starting a series for parents, targeting parents of preteens and teenagers, dealing with internet safety. And I'm going to cross multiple areas. We're going to start with cell phones, and then we're going to talk about Wi-Fi routers in the homes, and then we're going to jump into putting precautions on the tablets and the computers, and then I'm going to round it out with just some basic, taking old school parenting and bringing it into this new age, and stuff that we still, with all those precautions we will put in place, we're still going to have to do some hands-on parenting with our kids. So that's going to be my mini series for the next few weeks. And being that we're officially a year into this pandemic, parents who weren't utilizing digital media and devices for their children, I'm pretty sure has now been introduced to it and maybe can benefit from this information.
Cool. It's funny that you're talking about the safety of it all. I actually just, I'm a teacher and I had an after school program with girls and we're trying to come up with a policy change we can implement. And one of the possible topics we're going to do is having technology training for students the first like freshman year of high school. So to kind of introduce them, because as much as we think these kids are tech savvy, they know how to use cell phones, but they don't know a lot of the platforms and how to utilize different
Right.
features, Word and PowerPoint, all this stuff, but also teaching them about internet safety and things like that. Because being on the internet and stuff more these days, everybody's online, school, everything. Is I don't even see how we would ever go back to a situation where we were passing out papers and doing
Right.
stuff. So it
Yeah.
is the way it is going to be going forward. And this is something that's really needed because there's so much out there.
Right.
Yeah. And I think also included in that is the opportunity for parents to talk to their children about just being mindful and aware of not just the dangers of internet, of operating on the internet, but also the fact that this you're creating a permanent profile that people will one day go back and use what you're posting on the internet, and you may be scrutinized. It may or may not cause issues in the future for you, depending on what you choose to do in the future. So I think it's hard for children to understand and think future minded in the impact, the consequences in the future. And we as parents have to make sure that that we're communicating that. I mean, I sit on hiring boards all the time, and we look at internet profiles. We look at what you're posting on social
This
media,
fits
and
with
it's
her,
used to scrutinize.
this fits with her topic on controlling the narrative. Like
Yeah,
Right.
you have to be aware of your internet footprint. Person who, like, if they posted a picture and it didn't get a certain number of likes or more, they would delete it. It's like your value is going to be diminished by the fact that this picture only got 100 likes and not 1,000 likes. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so to me, it's like
but
this
there's
is
probably a reason for that. They're probably trying to attract sponsors, and um, a sponsor will go back and look at your post and see how much activity you're generating. Like you never know. So I'm just saying, there's always a reason why people do what they
Right.
do, and you may not know it, and it may not necessarily just be vanity. Like, oh, it could serve a very specific purpose that we just don't know what it is.
Right.
so. How
But
old were your children when they got their first phone?
This will be interesting, Charlize.
I'm a grandmama. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. My daughter was older. This whole topic right here, hats off to all the parents that's raising kids right now that has only known this environment. It's
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to parent and understand all the different influences that is influencing your children, because it's a mess on social media. And I don't care how many, not just social media, but everything that they have access to over the internet. And I don't care how many parental controls you put on it, they gonna figure out how to get to some bull. So
Right.
hats off to the parents, because my daughter was much older. Like my daughter will be 30 in June. So she was right at the cusp. So she was older. I think she was like 16 or something like that. And not only that, her cell phone came when she got a job and she could help pay for it. All these people think a 6, 7, 8-year-old, you ain't got no job, but you need a cell phone for. You ain't going nowhere that I don't know where you at. I'll get it. But I'm not somebody who had the parents in this generation. So my daughter got a cell phone and a car at 16, and she got a job, phone, car, job. All that
came together. What about you, Wanda? I mean,
you gotta help pay for it. Like I wasn't raised in an environment where you get something for nothing. My daughter wasn't raised in an environment where you get something for nothing. Right. Like she didn't bear the total responsibility, and she didn't pay for her car, but cars come with expense. Like you got to pay for insurance. Like you don't just get a car. Like I paid for the car, but you got to pay for insurance. You got to put gas in your car. And if it's some maintenance or whatever comes up, that's your responsibility. You can't do that. You don't need no car. So my daughter is much older.
But she was, what year was that? What year was that? Let's put that in context. 16.
Yeah,
that was, let's put
that. 14.
What year did she graduate from high school?
2006.
2007. Mm-hmm. So that was 2007 was the cell phone boom, because that's when iPhone.
But everybody was on social media at that point.
Right. So, but at 2007 is when iPhone introduced a mainstream smartphone. So before that, the first I'm only tech savvy up to a point, but the mainstream, most people either for professional reasons had a BlackBerry or a Palm Pilot. Palm Pilot introduced their phone, but a lot of people didn't understand the multitasking and the usefulness of having a device that, you could take calls on, check your email, use it as a GPS, send messages. It just didn't seem like we needed that. And I know from someone who had a Palm Pilot for a couple of years before she got her iPhone, and I got my iPhone in the beginning of 2008, I was like, you're going to have to sacrifice something. I couldn't see sacrificing my phone quality for task purposes. So I wasn't convinced that you could have a device that could do it all. Yeah. But that's me as an adult. As a child, why do you need that? And those things were expensive. So why would someone give a child something that would cost $500-$600?
Right. And then they had them data plans back then.
Right.
And that was on there times for the day and all. Like it was just different.
My kids are, younger. My oldest is 18. He will be 19 in July. Right. So I was anti-cell phone for myself for a long time. Like I was like, what do I need a cell phone for? Like, why do I need to have a phone in my pocket all day long? Who am I calling? Like, what are we doing? And then, so even when I finally got a cell phone, I got like the lowest, like little walkie-talkie looking cell phone that they had. And I kept that thing until like forever. It was like a Sony Ericsson AT&T.
Like, Charmaine to tell you, I keep a phone forever.
And then, so like if they forced us to move to smartphones, because there were no other options except for the old lady phone or the smartphone at one point. That's when the transition happened. I was like, why do I need Facebook and internet on my phone when I got a computer at home? I'm not gonna be walking around the world, la 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 la. Like that was my mentality. So my kids didn't have it because I didn't think I needed it. And so when I got my first smartphone, you're gonna laugh at me. I think it was like
I remember. Go ahead.
I had went out with some friends, and even when I got the smartphone, it was the cheapest minimum bird low level. I didn't get a package with the internet. I was like, I don't need it. I only got it because I was out with friends and it was like we were celebrating that somebody I knew had got their PhD. And I had my phone to take a picture and it was like one of them little slidey phones. And so then like when I pulled it out, everybody was like, what is that? And everybody like looking at it like it was an antique. And I was like, stop looking at my phone. And so then I got like the cheapest little smart face looking phone they had. And I had that. And I was just like, I still didn't have an internet package or anything, but at least I had a smartphone. It wasn't until I didn't get a Galaxy phone until like 2000 like 14, 13, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Quentin, wait, he didn't get a cell phone until he was like about a sophomore in high school. So about 15, 16, he got a cell phone. But he was upset because his brother ended up getting a phone right around shortly after him. And he's like, it wasn't fair. But the only reason why I did it is because they go to a school where Quentin's high school is like 7,000 kids.
Mm-hmm.
It is a huge space. And then he played baseball. Tyler played soccer. I don't have any family here. It's just me. And so it was like running around to different events. One night I went to pick Quentin. I had to drop Quentin off at something and then go run and take Tyler to something. And by the time I got back to get Quentin, it was dark. The coaches had left. The lights were out on the field. I had no idea where my child was.
Wow.
And he was just walking around in the dark. I was like, why wouldn't you just stay here? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so at that point, I was like, okay, I need to give him some sort of a phone so that if it's another time this happens, he can reach out to me. And so their phone didn't have like internet or all that stuff on it for the longest time, even though. And so neither of them really got into social media or any of that. And so they are just now getting to the point where like they watch a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that on there, but neither of them have Tyler just got Instagram, but he ain't put nan picture. Like he ain't got no pictures. He's just one of them people that's trolling people, just looking at people's stuff. But Quentin is the same way. Like I think that it is so much better if you wait till they're in their teens,
right,
before they access.
So I'm gonna, as a parent, my introduction, and I'm unique because I have a child that's 26 and then my youngest is 13. And then there's a 10-year gap between my oldest and my middle.
Like,
Girl, would you do that?
Right. So then he got his first phone when he was 10 because his grandmother was on our cell phone plan and she wanted to be on her own cell phone plan. And so we had her phone because it was still under contract. And it was a little sidekick, that's before data plans, this before smartphones. And so all you could really use it for is texting and talking. And so he got that phone when he was 10 and he's a boy and Malik is an introvert. So he wasn't out there on the phone, as a matter of fact, I think the reason why so many of his girlfriends broke up with him is because he's not a talker like that. So while girls would be on the phone wanting to talk all day and all night, Malik was just like, okay, whatever. And as a matter of fact, when my niece came to live with us, she was using his phone more than he was. So fast forward to then when my daughter started asking for a phone, I think she was around 8. And so her friends are starting to get phones because her best friend is almost 3 years older than her. So you have to realize that now her best friend is over 10 and she probably got a phone. And so Maya kept asking, well, when am I going to get my phone? When am I going to get my phone? And so I was like, okay, to be fair, because then it was like, well, when did Malik get his phone? And he's like, well, he was 10, So we was like, okay, when you 10, so I got her a track phone. We got her a prepaid track phone that was cheap that we bought probably from Walgreens or Walmart or somewhere. And it was like, if you can keep up with this for a year, we'll get you an iPhone, because we were an iPhone family. Everybody in the house had iPhones at this point. So Maya didn't like her phone. I honestly think she was kind of embarrassed by it. I keep meaning to ask her. And so she never really carried it unless she was out. Like if she was at a friend's house and I would need to contact her or something like that. And she kept up with the phone. And then at 10, she got iPhones. But at this point now, AT&T and all the mobile companies are like, we have these families and this is a whole tapped in market. And so they start doing packages. You buy one phone, get your kid phone for free, add a line for free, so it wasn't an added expense originally for us. So we didn't see the harm in getting her a phone. And we put it in a super duper, like out of box case. And I'm thinking she's 10. What can she do on this phone? And, and that was my introduction to a whole new reality.
But I think this is a really fascinating topic, because I know a lot of parents are struggling, even though my daughter is older, because because I had my daughter younger. I have a lot of friends, like if you got a teenager right now,
right,
the phone is an issue.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if you think about it, they're getting phones, even if you wait to 10 or 11, or even not just the phone, just the computer and access to the
internet. They're getting tablets.
Because Quentin they didn't have cell phones, but when puberty and your hormones and your body hit, no matter what the technology
Right. And it wasn't like we wasn't talking on the phone. We was talking on the phone. We just wasn't talking on the cell phones and stuff.
Right. The first time that I saw any kind of pornographic images or things like that, I was like 11, right? I had found this box, because you're a nosy kid. I was at my aunt's house, and I was
speak for yourself.
I was in the guest room, and it was like a bunch of my dad's. He used to live there when he was younger, and so it was on a bunch of his old clothes, like from the 70s, bell bottoms and stuff in the closet. And so I would go in there and like put on jackets and be like, looking through all the old stuff. And it was a box at the bottom of the closet with magazines in it. And so
stay out of folks' business. Supposed to stay out of grown folks' business.
I look at those magazines. And so I feel like, okay, at 11, that was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? And then so like, that was when I was introduced to the world of pornography. But at our age and in our level of technology, the access to that information and to be able to repeatedly it was very limited. It was because I would only go over my aunt's house like once every other week or so, and then you could only look at it at a certain time if you snuck and you happened to be in that room. You couldn't make an excuse to be in that room if you didn't really need to be, and it had to be after people wasn't active. You know what I'm saying? So it was very limited. But with not even with just cell phones, but with the access to the computer, starting at age 11, because my kids were doing schoolwork and activities on the computer, I bought a computer. It did not even cross my mind. It did not cross my mind. And I get on a computer and it pop up and you're like, but now the access is unlimited to all these things. And so then, like you talked about, having different controls and things like that, and it was
and so the technology is going faster than we can as parents learn how to cope with it. It seems like technology is moving lightly, or it's just zooming, and then a problem as parents, we hit it and we're like, oh my God, how do we deal with it? So when it was just a desktop computer, they said, okay, put your computer in a common area in the home, and even houses start being built around it. I think that's around the time when you start getting desk workstations put in the kitchens and stuff like that. So you could put the computer in a public area, in a common area. So then laptops came.
At home, it don't matter if it's in a public place.
Right. If you're not home, it doesn't matter. And then we have to realize is that both parents, we're now living in a society where have two parent and single parent households who are working. And so kids are coming home and there's no one home. So if they got a good 40, you got a horny 11, 12-year-old kid, boy, he now knows that he
got 30 minutes.
Right. He got 30 minutes. And then that's
so,
when.
So what are your recommendations to parents? You brought out some good things in your blog, and I think what are your recommendations for
just
people
to get jump started? So if this is your first introduction and we're going to go into the nitty gritty of the technology with the series, but my tips would be, you have to have a conversation with your kids. You have to look at those devices are like open windows to your home. You have strangers who now have access to your children and into your household. And that's how you have to see it. So then.
Well, that's literally true too,
Right.
because a lot of times, depending on what you're doing, it's geotag. And there's been issues where somebody literally can know where you live. And if there is ill intent, they can carry that out.
Right.
So you have to really be careful.
One of the other things I think parents need to just really think is your kids are lying to you. I don't care. I do not care how straight your face is.
Right.
I do not care how much you think they love you.
Oh, not my child.
They are lying.
Yeah, lying. Right.
Lying to you.
So don't be
frustrated, and because it's part of it.
And
it's a teenage
the
thing.
second part is understand they were born into this technology. So they're smarter than you. When it comes to technology, they're smarter than you. And for every
thing that's frustrating, because like I said, we need a technology class to train them on how to use platforms and stuff. They will figure out how to use the stuff to get to what they want to do.
Right. So
that's all kids.
So just assume that for every tip that we're going to be going over in the next few weeks, there's a YouTube video telling you how to undo what your parent did. So that's when your hands-on parenting.
On lockdown so bad, I couldn't see nothing. But they were still seeing something on there.
Right. And I'm like, I'm serious, because I'm like, my kids turn in their devices. That's one of the tips I give. It's a forced break to your child. Overnight is an unsupervised. Your kids will stay up all night on their devices if they have access to it.
I had a docking station.
Right. Wandell is the one that I got this tip from. So that docking station is now in my room, and their phones are still bloop, 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 bloop. Lights are lighting up because one of them got every time they get a alert on their phone, their flashlight blinks, the flash blinks. And I'm like,
turn it off. Just turn it off.
That's what it is now. We turn it off. They have to turn them off. But I'm just saying. So the hands-on guidance to the technology that I'm giving. Nothing's going to beat old-fashioned being present with your kids, talking to your children, and going through stuff together and mimicking the habits that you want your children to have. Because there's nothing worse, and I'm guilty of this, of us saying, as my child is now about to be 16, and unlike my oldest son, he didn't have no interest in driving. This child has been talking. She's like, when she turned 15, she's like, at 15 and a half, I can get a driver's permit. I'm like, I don't care.
Well, you need to get a job.
Right. And so
ain't talking about getting no job though.
Right. But with that is now I'm conscious that I have this potential driver in my car, and I don't want her texting and driving. I don't want her distracted driving with her phone, distracting her. And so I have to be conscious of mimicking
Setting
an example.
Like when the kids get in the car, I usually try to get off the phone.
Right. I've been on the phone with Wandell, and she's like, okay, the kids are in the car, I got to get off. And that's what she does. My phone is integrated into my car, so I don't really think about it like that because I use mine as a GPS. It has that Apple Car interface. So I don't really think about it when, the kids are in the car other than, maybe I need to pay attention to my kids for, the 10 minutes that we're in the car. And that's a great time to have some good conversation. But yeah, it's just, so those are the things. So we're going to be talking about, just to get started, knowing, I think as a parent, there shouldn't be a passcode or a password on your child's phone that you don't have access to.
And you might be embarrassed, but I'm gonna be looking. So if you don't want me to see it, you shouldn't be doing it.
Right, you shouldn't be doing it.
Get you a job
and that's the second part. Is there anything, there's nothing that you should be doing online. If you're embarrassed for me to know about it, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Not saying that kids don't have privacy, and as you have children who are
kids don't have no right to privacy. You got a right to privacy when you leave my daggone house. And if you come back and you grown, you still ain't got no right to privacy.
That's why I say
the right to privacy come with the right to pay bills.
We talked about that with that meme where it was like, if you kick your kids out at 18 without a plan, that's generational curses or whatever. And I don't think you don't even got to get out, but you got to have some sort of plan. You got to do something, and the rules don't change. These are the same rules.
Right. The rules say the same.
But I do hear you, because I think even with the rise in technology, concurrent with the rise of technology has been the rise of really absent parenting.
And I definitely know what she's saying, because I've seen like people would sit their kid in front of a TV or a video or give them a tablet, and then just that be was raising.
And not even that, I've literally, and I will not, one thing I will preference this is, a lot of people might know that I work in child protective services. So any stories that I share is from friends or personal experience. I will not share any stories that are from cases past or present that I've worked on. But you see it. I mean, if you looking at this and you're like, oh, she's talking about my kid. No, I'm not. But I have been in situations where a 3-year-old have been, playing with mom's phone, and then mom has to get her phone, and the baby will have a mini meltdown until they give them the phone. So what's the solution to that? Kindle and everybody else comes up with a tablet that's baby proof, like it's rubberized and it's, kid friendly. And so instead of giving your child your phone that you need throughout the day, they have their own device at 2. And Charlize, when she gets back on here, I'm sure she'll talk about it. She got her grandson got a leapfrog tablet when he was young. So it's like,
I think part of it was because they sold us on it. They sold us that, kids need these technology things, these games, these integrated.
Right. And so then when you find out that Steve Jobs wouldn't even let his own child use these devices, he had very strict limitations. Then when you find out that Silicon Valley's children go to school that has absent of technology.
Right. I was reading articles about them having these schools where you don't get access to technology until 16.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been pumping this in us that our kids are going to be behind the curve if they don't have these things.
Right.
And so I felt guilty for a long time not giving my kids them. I kept feeling like, am I holding my kids back? Are they going to be behind the curve? Are they not going to be up to par with their, because I remember like, even when they were like in elementary school and middle school.
Can you see her coming in?
No, I don't see her yet. But everything was so, all the kids had access to all these different things that my kids didn't have access to. And even with video games and stuff, that I limited the types of games they could play and the things they could do. And like when we would go to different things, or the students would present stuff about what they like and what they do, the kids, all the other kids had very different tech oriented things that they liked. Whereas my kids had very kiddie, colorful, like regular, I think age appropriate things that they liked. And I felt like, am I holding my kids back?
Right.
Apparently I need some help with technology.
Listen, it's funny. Last night I think I posted it, and I think I sent it to you guys. A high school friend is a DJ. He's a teacher, but he's also does DJing. And he was on Twitch. He started doing his live DJing on Instagram. And then he said, he started saying, come over to Twitch. I'm like, what the hell is a Twitch?
What is a Twitch?
Right. And so it's another social media platform for live streaming, and gamers are using it and stuff like that. So yesterday, but I've used it for the last couple of weeks that he's been on. I've been going on Twitch and watching and listening to his streaming. And I like it better than Instagram because it allows me, it frees up my device, and I can multitask. Like, you know, on Instagram, you have to be on Instagram. You close out Instagram, you lose the feed. So yesterday, I switched over to Twitch, and it was just frozen. And I'm looking, I'm like, why isn't this, you know, and I'm looking, and I said, Amari, come here, help me. What's going on? And I was instantly transported to being in New York at my grandmother's house when they got their VCR, and they was like, how do you get this thing to work? How do I get to my soap opera that I recorded? You know, and it's like, I now at 47 years old, I know that my children know more about technology than I do. Like that platform, like chat, what is that? Snapchat. I won't even engage. I'm like, I can't. There's so many new platforms out here, and that's the other tip for parents. You might not use them, but you need to be aware of them. So when you see, like, Discard is a new app that my kids are utilizing, and they both sent me requests for those apps at the same time, and I'm thinking it's an educational, because it was during the school time. I'm thinking
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh out loud. Sorry.
I'm thinking it's an educational app, and they use it for school. And come to find out, it's another, you know, platform that the kids are using. I think the introduction of Discard was for educational purposes, but the kids done found a way, just like Zoom. They're using this Zoom to socialize because they know that that's a platform that when their parents see it, they're not going to freak out. And so it's on their computers. And even though they're getting their phones taken away from their tablets taken away from them, they still need their Chromebooks and their laptops.
Look,
And they can use.
I feel like as a parent now, you have to, like, I think this is, I'm not going to speak on this particular situation, but I think that as a parent now, you have to take everything, and then you have to still, like,
Right.
if you take the phone, you got to wait at night and see if you see a glow in the room or something, and then go in and take whatever that is. It could be an old iPod, it could be a tablet, it could be an old phone that don't have a SIM card no more. It could
Right.
be, they could get an
Listen,
old phone from a
my
friend.
first iPad mini.
All of it has to be out because all of
Right.
it is access.
I don't even know. I don't even remember forgetting that I had this device. I thought that because the screen is completely smashed, but it still works. And I didn't like it. I bought the iPad mini when it first was introduced. And it, to me, it felt like a big version of my iPhone, and I hated it. Like, I've never used the iPhone Max. I don't like the big format of the iPhone. And so when I got the iPad mini, thinking, oh, it'd be a cute little device to have on my bedside to watch TV, to read. You know, I used it as instead of getting a Kindle, let me use the iPad mini. And but it was slow, it was laggy. I didn't like it. So then when that was around the time when my oldest was going to college, he could download his textbooks to it. So I gave it to him. He had it, but then while he had it, he smashed the screen to it. And he said he wasn't really using it. So we never really paid to get the screen fixed. So fast forward, Malik graduated from high school in 2013, right? I gave that to him in 2013. It's 2021 and it's after hours. My kids turn in their devices. The Chromebook is in there. I even take their TV cords. I take the TV cords until I figured out how I have to replace my router because my router's parental controls is antiquated and it doesn't work. So I need to replace my router. So I take their TV cords. I go in checking on the kids to say, good night. She got the iPad mini. I'm like, what the hell? First of all, how long have you had it? And why do you have it? And so it's
will
like
find something. I'm telling you, it's
they will
always
find
like
something.
some random. They will have something that they
These
because
kids will find a way.
there's so many different things you can get online on
Right.
YouTube.
Yeah.
My friend was like, her daughter was on an old what's those little music things y'all used to have for
The
iPhones?
iPod, the
I
iPod.
had one of the old
Mhm.
iPods that had a screen. These
Yep.
kids don't even use iPods like that no more.
It's just you have to be diligent. So my thing is, as over the next few weeks, as we're going over, um, phone safety, there's a way to do parental controls on Android-based phones, and there's a way to do parental controls on iPhones. We'll be talking about that, and setting up your routers and checking with even when you don't have to go out and buy a new router. Most internet companies, if you have a Wi-Fi router, their routers are programmable. So we'll be talking about that and seeing, like with me, by doing this project, I discovered that my router does have it, but it's antiquated, but there's the new version. I just have to take it during a time where my husband's not teaching, the kids aren't doing digital learning, and take that to the store and replace it with an updated one with Spectrum. And then we'll be talking about computer safety and things like that. But like we said at the beginning, with all those tips, nothing is going to replace the hands-on. We have to lose that habit that most of us as parents have gained of using that technology as a stand-in for parenting,
The other thing too
and
is like some parents nowadays, I've been guilty of this myself. You get to a point where like you just feel like it's intuitive that your kids
mhm,
know certain things and understand
mhm,
certain things, and there are certain things that you don't feel that, oh, I don't really have to tell them that, they know better. No,
mhm.
they need you to tell them.
They
They
need you
don't
to tell
know.
them.
Because one of the things I always, and we've said it before in conversations in the morning, where it's like people always talk about kids don't have common sense and things like that, but things are only common when they have occurred, when you've experienced them
Right. And
and they
experience.
become common. And so if you're not exposing or having conversations or interacting with them in certain ways, they won't have common sense about certain things.
Right.
And so we take it for granted. Sometimes people get so caught up in thinking we think that people know what we know, think the way we
Right.
think, and then and it doesn't work like that. You really have to
Right.
explicitly explain things to children, and like you said,
Right.
be really hands-on
Yeah.
and intentional.
Yeah. Parenting is hard, and technology has not made parenting easier. It's made it harder.
Though
It
it,
just
It's
created
harder
problems.
parenting in this
Right.
environment. And it's even more important to be an active, involved parent,
Mm-hmm.
and really not just active and involved, but intentional in your parenting and making sure that your kids, there's certain things that you're intentionally making sure that your kids get, because they're being exposed to so much stuff like
Right.
foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to make sure that you're balancing that, counteracting that, and being very intentional in what you are ensuring that your kids are understanding and setting a foundation for what they're going to carry forward as adults.
Right.
Uh, and then not only that, like we think this technology has enabled us to be connected to so much more information, and
Mm-hmm.
that may be true, but we're also becoming more isolated in our ability to socialize and communicate effectively and interact more effectively as as a community, really. And so
Right.
I think you have to be mindful of that, because I mean we're just living in an age where and you have to understand how AI works. Your
Mm-hmm.
kids could be clicking on stuff, and whatever they clicking on, it's going to be reinforced and magnified times 10. They're going to be bombarded with whatever they clicking on,
Right.
and it becomes even more amplified. So it's tough. This is a tough environment. Hats off to parents. You've been doing a good job so far. I enjoy being a grandma. I'm gonna tell you that.
You
I'll
know,
make sure my daughter watch this podcast. Girl, you need to watch that. Make sure my grandson is up in
Right,
it
because
because
we
he
were
know how to
saying
use
like
them
you were away,
devices.
we were saying like you got him, his first device was probably that Leapfrog tablet. And it's that gateway. I hate the fact that I'm saying that, but it is that gateway introduction to technology where we start with, someone his age, you're thinking this has precaution, there's safeguards built in. We know he can't do certain things on this one device, but as he matures and gets older, he's going to use the next tablet. I'm sure he doesn't even know where that Leapfrog tablet is anymore. And so he's using probably another tablet. And we done, as parents, you're probably like, oh, I didn't have to worry about the Leapfrog tablet, but now he has a Kindle, and the Kindle doesn't have the same safeguards as the Leapfrog did. And then we might graduate to an iPad. iPad definitely doesn't have as many safeguards as the Kindle did. And so we're introducing them to more and more technology with less safeguards, and we're dealing with the fallout of that. And so now you're seeing kids, and I hear it time and time again, and this will be my first time saying professionally and personally, that parents think that they're alone in this problem. It's like, no, my kid is different. No, my child is addicted and they're not like, right, they're not, you're thinking that you're alone in this problem. And as a mom of teenagers and as a professional who works with parents and children, I know uniquely you are not alone. This problem is crossing all gender, economic, and cultural. It's a universal problem that a lot of families are dealing with, and so I started this project as something to do professionally, and I didn't have the time to do it. So I'm going to try to do it as a professional for both my personal blog too. And the goal is to get some material that can be shared for parents and things like that. So
good luck. I think it's a good series. And then also incumbent in that is not just thinking about it from a safety perspective, but we have unintentionally raised kids that are addicted to these technology platforms. Like it's almost like crack. You cannot take a phone away from a teenager. They will have a straight breakdown. And then when you do, they are suffering from withdrawal, like literal withdrawal. I mean, like
that's
literal.
why that
same
one little
symptoms.
tip that I got from Wandell, that one little tip of taking their devices at night, is twofold. A, you kind of eliminate the safety aspect of what they're doing on it when everyone's supposed to be asleep, but it also gives them a break. It gives them a break from those devices. And while they don't see, so where I don't have the problem where we take a device away and my child is having a complete, because they're used to it. We've been doing it for several years now, so they're used to it. So, but do it for the first time to a 12-year-old girl who's had her phone since she's 8 and take away her phone.
Good luck. I mean, if you haven't been a parent and do that in combination with the parent who hasn't set a good foundation for authority and accountability.
Right.
Because these kids is running things now. Like I ain't never seen nothing like that.
But we also got kids. We also somehow and somewhere at some point, and I know this is a profession, I won't use any examples, but parents are scared to parent. We somehow, the message is out there. If we parent our children, if we enforce discipline, then we
You're all right, Wandell.
Child Protective Services will be knocking on their door. And if we do, guess who I will say, honey, you can discipline your children. All we're saying is you can't abuse them. This is what
you can't be no punk as a parent.
Right,
takes courage. You can't be no punk as no parent. The one time my daughter mentioned Child and Family Services ain't new, call them. Anybody who is gonna force me to let some kid run my household, you need to
Mhm.
go live with them.
Right.
You need to pay crazy with your kids.
I'ma
Call them.
I
Ain't nobody coming in my house and running my house and telling me I gotta let my kid do some BS in my
Right.
house and that I'm paying the bills for. Oh hell no.
I just listened to, on audiobook. I just listened to The Coddling of the American Mind.
Yes, I have to.
Like it is, I feel like it should be mandatory for all parents to listen to it or read it, because it talks
I'm
about
gonna read it.
how all this
Sent it to me.
culture and all this stuff that we see in our social structure now has come from a lot of the things that we touched on today. A lot of the not monitoring technology as a child, the addiction to technology, the social and emotional impacts of those addictions to technology, and the fact that kids are not socialized and they don't play and they don't do
Yeah.
things that
Like
they.
you scared to let your kid go out in the street.
Yes, like that. He brought up actual cases where like
Mhm.
letting your kid walk home from school, somebody called Child Protective Services on you.
Right.
Just like me, I was at a dinner with a bunch of people, and they were talking about when they first let their kids stay home by themselves, and I was
Mhm.
like, my kids were staying home by themselves when they was like 8 and 6, and they were like, that's illegal. I was like, actually, it's not. The state of Texas, because I'm from Missouri. I needed to know the rules when I moved here. I say the state of Texas has no age minimum. You is up to the discretion of the parent, and if you raise your child and you train them to be able, and you believe they're capable, now you are responsible for anything that
6
happens.
seems a little young though. I'm gonna go with 6 seems a little young to leave them by themselves.
Really, Charlize,
5,
we were
and
latchkey kids.
school at
Six
5.
is not right. You have to think about it. If you are,
One of
you
the
have to
things he
think
says
about
in
it.
the book is like
Right.
we think about things right now in a kind of a fear mindset, but we don't remember what we were doing when we were kids. Like I literally had a kid.
I was 3 walking to the corner store. Like I thought that was a
Buying
false
cigarettes.
My mama
Buying
was
cigarettes.
And probably some alcohol too.
Listen, for this to this,
Good.
until my mind confirmed that story, I thought that was a false memory. Like I was like, because then I thought about it, I was like, I put it in context. I was like, Charlize was a newborn, and I could remember going to the corner store, just handing the guy behind the counter the list, and then him giving me the bag and walking back home and walking up the stairs and giving mom and your dad whatever was in the bag. And so I thought it was a false memory. And then my aunt Janice was like, that's how I ended up with my grandparents, because somebody said, is that Mrs. Archer's granddaughter walking down the street? Oh, I froze.
Yeah.
Yes, 3 years old is too young to send your child to the store to buy some cigarettes.
Yes. But like I'm not saying 3 years old, and be sure you follow the rules and laws in your particular jurisdiction. But what I'm saying is like people don't let when I was going back to school, there was a girl who was in the lab I was working in, and she was saying that she was in her 20s before she was ever unsupervised. She was literally, her parents didn't let her play outside the yard. She was either at cheer, at school, or at some function with another adult.
That's ridiculous too.
And so that's what I'm saying. It's like it's too much on some
It's
degree.
too much. Yeah. Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
It's like just kind of not necessarily just giving kids, just letting them be feral and raise themselves, but giving them those times where they can be independent and build relationships and kind of learn how to communicate and do things without your oversight. Because we all know there is a difference in the way we act when we're being watched than we are when we're on our own, and the kids don't really get that because they're being watched all the time. And even like at school is cameras, out in the world is cameras, people got cameras, so kids nowadays are being watched constantly. And so I think as small children, they need to have that little bit of time where they do have some space to gain that independence and have those internal conversations. Because I think that's some of what's missing now is those internal conversations about, self-regulation and how to maintain. And that's why people so sensitive now. Like we got everybody mad about something and everybody got to get fired or lose their job over everything. I don't know.
It's a fascinating topic though.
I don't know why y'all ever think it's gonna be short, because we could literally talk about anything.
Right.
It's a very fascinating topic.
Right.
It's like it irrelevant and something.
Oh,
Mhm.
and it's a documentary too, Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Right.
That was
So, I'm going to rewatch The Social Dilemma just to talk about how, the whole, algorithms and things like that and how that works and its intent, everything that we've talked about from the leap fact that gateway introduction to technology to our young kids, all that is deliberate. Nothing is
very deliberate.
right. There's nothing kind of happenstance about how technology is working and how it's integrated with the family. And the thing I will end with is that what we need to do is find a ways to make technology work for us, and we're not working for the technology. And because there's
all being intentional.
and there's good things about it. And in this post, I stated that ideally we wouldn't be giving our kids their first device until they're 15. But it's too late for most of us. Most of us who have 13, 14, and 15-year-olds, it's too late. Most of our kids have already got it. But if this is a young parent or a parent of a young child, and you're on the fence on whether or not to get that 7 or 8-year-old a phone, ask yourself one question: why are you doing it? Why do you believe your child needs? It is social pressure, because my kids, one thing I'll be talking about next week is my kids don't have access to 90% of their apps during school day. They have their phone. Now, if it's an emergency, they can call mom, they can call dad, they can call 911, but they can't they can't get on Instagram, they can't get on a lot of stuff. And so that's because we still say, okay, maybe there's a benefit of having your phone during the day because I'm a field worker, I might not be home, my husband might not be home, but you don't need the phone. You don't, and there's still that pressure as a parent. And I've had this conversation where parents are like, well, they're coming home and we don't have, because a lot of people don't have house phones anymore. So there are other options. If you have alarm system, that alarm system can be that emergency call device. You have Alexa, you have Google, what is it? Google has their own little system. Google Home. My kids, like since my kids didn't have their phone in the morning and I was getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym, and my youngest son's bus was coming when I was on my way home, but I wasn't there to wake him up anymore. So I use that technology to still be part of his morning routine. I would call his device that was in his room and say, okay, Amari, it's time to get up. Good morning. And I could have a quick little exchange with him in the morning while still doing my self-care that I so desperately needed, but eliminate that little twinge of guilt factor as a mom that I wasn't there in the morning for him. So you have to have that conversation with you as a parent. Why are you feeling pressured to give that child a phone? Is that child pressuring you because they're having peer pressure to have a device?
Get a lot of pressure.
How is this going to fit in your life? How is this going to impact your home economically, socially, and as a parent, and how is this going to look? So this is great, maybe really for that parent of a young child who is trying to decide whether or not to get their phone or device.
And you got to keep in mind, it's once you allow certain things, it's hard to backtrack and be like, you know what, now that I thought about it, that was a good idea. It's hard so you got to be intentional and mindful up front of when you're going to introduce your kids to certain things. Also being aware of the fact that they could be introduced to it other ways, right?
And so we're going to end